Hello, everybody. Welcome, dreamers, gamers, transportation enthusiasts alike. I am Bill, and I am super excited to welcome you to the Torque and Thrust Talk Show podcast, episode number 1. Welcome to our world. It's an absolute beautiful morning. Really super happy to have you all here. It's obviously episode 1. It is our premiere. It's going to be exciting, different. It's going to be a different type of podcast, obviously about gaming, aviation, and transportation, but we'll get in that a little bit more. This morning, obviously, we want to try to be as informative as we can, as entertaining as we can as well. But what other better way to do that than doing it with somebody who I consider a friend, an expert in his career field, very knowledgeable, and that's going to be Justin.
How are we doing this morning?
Doing good this morning. Obviously, we just spent 30 minutes doing technical checks, and it just obviously went all downhill as we started. I absolutely
That's
love
all
it.
right. It happens.
Anyways, but this is Justin, and Justin's gonna give you a little background about himself.
All right. So, like Bill said, my name is Justin. I am a professional driver. I've been in the industry now for 13 years. I've been a driver trainer with multiple companies. I've held my hazmat endorsements, tanker endorsements, and I've seen 46 out of our 50 states here in the United States. So, pretty well traveled, and I currently call Maine my home.
But as I said before, my name is Bill. You guys may know me as Captain Bill Official. Back in the day, I did do a little podcast called the Aviation Communication Education Podcast. It was a small narrative type podcast about the history of aviation in order to educate people about the history of education. It was a lot of fun, but unfortunately, it was a lot of work because it was a single person thing. So I'm super excited to be here with Justin. As many of you know, I am a Boeing 737 first officer for a major U.S. airline, originally from and born and raised in El Paso, Texas. That's where I started my flight training as a glider pilot. Went to school at Florida Institute of Technology, where I earned my 4-year degree in aviation. I was a regional airline pilot for 4.5 years, of which I was a captain, and 3 years I did check airman union stuff as well. And now I'm flying the Boeing 737 for one of the big legacies. So that is our background. In terms of today, we have a couple things lined up for you today. I think it's going to be exciting. It's going to be entertaining. So we're going to have our weekly news segment. We're going to talk about Jargon in a Jiffy, Comic Corner, our big discussion topic, which is going to be our weekly discussion topic. And then our favorite is going to be the live listener Q&A. We are live on TikTok Live, on YouTube, and Twitch as well. So if you guys have any questions throughout the segments, you're more than welcome to ask that, but don't get discouraged if we don't answer them right away. We're not ignoring you. It's just we're saving it for that segment. So please feel free to do that. With that being said, if I can get us both up here, what is this thing doing? There we go. We're nailed it, right? Just freaking nailed it.
First try.
First try. All right. So we're going to transition here into our commercial transportation news. Justin, what do you got for us?
All right. So this article was actually written back in February of 2022.
Okay.
But essentially, in the trucking industry, there is no standard right now for minimum hours of training before you can, be blessed and put out on your own. Many companies have their own set of standards that they require, but
Okay.
there's still no federal standard. Back in 1991, Congress had actually ordered the Federal Highway Administration to come up with some sort of standards. And as of 2014, it still hadn't really been carried out.
Wait, so when did they ask? When did they first start?
1991.
I'm sorry, say one more time. 1951?
1991.
Oh, 1991. I thought you said 51. Okay.
But still, 32 years later, we have no standard for the industry.
Huh.
And when you think about it, I'm going to use Swift Transportation as
Okay.
everyone talks about Swift. Hey, look, it's a Swift drive. Okay. My argument with that is, every driver has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And these companies are taking in new drivers 21 years of age. You have to be a minimum of 21 years of age. However, that may be changing to 18 via
Okay.
a pilot program being introduced by the Biden administration.
Okay.
But at 21 years of age, you're given control of an 80-foot long, 80,000-pound piece of metal hurtling down the interstate at 60 miles an hour. And I will say something that was said to me during my training is new drivers hit shit. Old drivers have more serious accidents.
Collide with.
And what I mean by that and what they meant by that is because you're unfamiliar with the vehicle and its performance aspects, you have a tendency to misjudge corners, and
Okay.
that's when you see, a trailer that has taken a corner too tight and it's clipped a light pole, or they're in a shipper and receiver's yard and they hit those, metal and
Oh yeah.
the yellow posts
Mm-hmm.
that mark like corners of buildings and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Those are put there for new drivers. Um,
Those are the new driver posts. Okay.
yeah,
Is that why they're painted like bright yellow?
they make them easier to hit that way. Um,
10 points.
but so back to the Swift thing. They are an absolutely enormous company.
Mm-hmm.
They have 15,000, almost 16,000 power units on the road.
Okay, and power units. That's
That's the trucks.
okay.
So they have nearly 16,000, and they have about 13,500 drivers.
Wow.
That's a huge share.
Mm-hmm.
They are an absolutely massive company. To put it in another way, as of 2022, they had logged about 1.2 billion with a B,
Whoa.
miles. 1.2 billion.
Billion. Huh.
And it's just, for somebody that's been in the industry for 13 years, and I've got about 1 million miles, that's insane.
It is. That is absolutely. I'm trying to think. I don't even, as a pilot, don't even have 1 billion miles underneath my belt. And I've been doing it for nearly 7 years.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely insane.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is, with no federal minimums for training,
Mm-hmm.
and companies as large as Swift operating, you're bound to have incidents.
Okay.
And there's got to be, we got to come up with minimums.
Mm-hmm.
There was an incident several years back where I think everybody had heard about this, the massive crash out in Colorado.
Yep. With the young
Denver.
kid.
He was 21, or he was 23. I'm sorry. He was 23 years of age when that accident happened, and he had only had his license a short time, and he had never done any mountain driving.
Ooh. Okay.
So it was kind of this huge culmination of storm, and it, unfortunately, many people lost their lives that day.
Yeah, and what Justin's referring to is there was a driver. Basically, it was a runaway truck, right? But he didn't want it. He was too scared to take the runoff.
Yeah. So what happens with commercial trucks? They're very large, and when you're going downhill and you're using the brakes generate a lot of heat.
A lot, yeah.
And as metal items get hotter, they expand. What also happens at the same time is the braking material inside the drums. So most trucks use a drum and shoe versus a disc and pad style brake.
That makes okay.
So as that braking material heats up, it will actually glaze over.
Oh, okay. And it makes it harder.
It loses its abrasiveness.
Ooh, okay.
And it just becomes smooth surface on smooth surface now.
Ooh, so it's useless. Even if the brake drum was like in perfect condition beforehand, if it gets too heated, it just becomes useless.
Yes, exactly. Wow. And that scenario is called brake fade.
Okay.
So as he's coming down the hill, he's too scared to use a runoff ramp, but he's got no brakes.
Oh man. Okay. Yeah. Now let me ask you a question, Justin. So, because you mentioned the pilot program, right? Is that like they start at 18? Is that what you said to get
Yeah,
them?
so they to try and get more drivers into the industry, they're trying
Yeah.
to lower the age to 18 with this
Okay.
pilot program, and I haven't been able to find exactly what the requirements would be to
Okay.
enter the program. My guess is you're still going to have to do your written test and
Yep.
your road evaluation, but beyond that, I don't know if like you would have to spend an extended amount of time with a driver trainer,
Yeah.
which I imagine you would. Um,
So is your big concern with that? And because right now what you're saying is there's no federal requirement. Because I know a lot of people are sitting out there going, "Hey, but pilots can be 21 and fly an 85-ton airplane." But it's a little bit different though, right? Because with pilots we have age and experience requirements, but as like you said, for the past 30 something years, the department of the Federal Highway Department hasn't had any, right? And there is no minimum
Correct.
for a commercial truck driver. So it could be an 18-year-old, but there should, are you saying, and I agree with you if you are, but you're saying there should be some, if they're going to be that young in this program, there should be some sort of training requirement, right? Like hour requirement to be able to do it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As far as I'm concerned, a lot of the companies for new drivers require 90 days with a trainer.
Hmm.
I would almost extend that to a year.
Okay.
That's
Is
gonna
that,
get
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
that's gonna get you if it's over the road training.
Hmm.
Um, that's gonna get you to around 100,000 miles.
Okay.
Um, and I think that's a good starting off point because as day one when you sign on with a company, you are now quote unquote an experienced driver.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Um, and most companies, when they hire experienced drivers, they want you to have that 1 year of experience.
Right.
So why not set that as the benchmark for training?
Like, okay, yeah, I can see that. Now, let me ask you a question: is, in your experience, because you've been a professional driver for 13 years, is that right?
13. Yep.
For 13, in your opinion, what is more valuable? Is it miles over the road? So like in aviation, it's hours, right? It's flight hours. So, is it something that should be intensive in terms of they're driving a lot of miles over the surface or like on the road, or is it a time thing? Is it like, okay, a minimum of a year, or what did you do both? Like a minimum of 60,000 miles with an instructor, or a year, whichever one comes last, let's say.
Um, honestly, I would set it minimum time 1 year
Hmm.
or 100,000 miles, whichever occurs first.
Driver course first. Okay. Well, see, that's a good benchmark, right? Because I
Um,
think that's the biggest thing is like, oh, how do we measure experience like flight hours?
right, because you have to understand like if there are some local carriers that will hire fresh graduates, fresh CDL licensees. Um, and I think there's a lot of experience to be gained from doing city type deliveries. You're working in tighter confines of the roadway. Um, for us as drivers, going down the highway really isn't that stressful. Just make sure you don't bounce off the car and keep it between the guardrails. And it's pretty self-explanatory. It's when we
Yeah.
get off the highway
Hmm.
that you're starting to work, inner city streets and starting to maneuver, you know, around, make sure you don't hit low bridges and things like that. That's where the experience is really gained.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, that makes sense.
So that's
So,
why I say 100,000 miles or 1 year, because if you're not over the road but you're still doing driving type
mhm,
things in a city environment,
I gotcha.
that 1 year,
Is more important than the necessary, because in that year
yes,
you may not be making the 100,000 miles.
exactly, yes.
Okay. So if they were to if the federal government were to implement and say, okay, this is what we're gonna need, do you think that would still be enough for someone as young as 18? Because I get that a lot. Like when I was flying around as a regional pilot at 22, it's like, are you even old enough? Are you mature enough to handle this responsibility? Is that something that you think an 18-year-old will do with the proper training and experience with like an instructor in the right seat?
I mean, if we're being honest, if you join if you join the army and um go through their driver program, like some of their guys can, haul military equipment down the highways with a military grade tractor trailer
Hmm.
at 18, 19 years old, but because they're in the military, they get a special issuance, basically.
That is true. That's a good point. So there's already a program out there, aka the
Yep.
military, that indicates that proper training and certification, regardless of age, could help solve or could produce a responsible professional commercial driver.
Right.
Okay, well that's interesting. Anything to add to that, Justin? That's an actually excellent topic because it kind of ties into a little more stuff
Not
that we'll be talking
I
about.
I just, you know, like I said, with proper training, like it's a difficult industry. It's, just like the airline industry, you're responsible for a lot of things. Not only are you responsible for your safety and, the safety of, potentially your trainer,
Hmm.
but you're also responsible for the safety of that family that's in the minivan that's, going to Disney World.
That's true. Yeah, 100%. That is very true. Yeah, and I think that's an important thing that that Justin is emphasizing too is just it's the safety aspect. It's not the age. It's not the you need to pay your time. You're too young. It all comes down to the safety aspect of it.
Yep.
Is the fact that the federal highways was it what'd you say agency is that the
Yeah, at the time it was the Federal Highway Administration, and I'm pretty sure it's
DOT now?
Department of Transportation, yes,
Okay, so
or
it's just
it's the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration,
Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. Wow, that's
FMCSA.
there we go. I would say, where's the acronym? I know acronyms, but that so basically it's just there's nothing implemented right now.
Right.
So okay, well that's a good one. I don't know if I can follow that one up pretty well. God, you came out swinging, Justin.
Yeah, well,
All
swing
right,
for the fences.
yeah. Well, and one thing I did forget to mention is unfortunately, Tommy D, which is our also fellow host from Level Flight Simulations, due to a sudden and urgent family matter, wasn't able to join us this morning. So I believe he is listening and watching. So if you are, we extend our hopes and that everybody is safe and healthy where you are, Tommy. But Tommy will be joining us come next week on our next show. So I'm going to do my best. Tommy knows way more about gaming than I do, especially with flight sim stuff. Originally today, he was going to talk about some development updates with Microsoft Flight Simulator, PMD or PMDG. It says here Lunar Sim 767-300, the Phoenix A320, and the Bluebird Sim 757. However, I'm not even going to try to imitate that because, like I said, Tommy knows way more and can probably discuss that a little bit better. But I will be covering his segment today, talking about gaming and simulation news. So I'm going to leave the Microsoft Flight Simulator updates to Tommy for next week because, like I said, he could probably describe them a lot better than I can, other than me going, "Ooh, airplane go through sky on computer," So I'm not even going to attempt to do that. But I do want to talk. I did some research. Talk about a couple things. I found let's see, I found two things that I want to talk about in terms of gaming. I thought it was super interesting. So this one's from the IGN, I believe it's the International Game Network. Silent Hill from Ascension premieres on Halloween. Now, what I thought was interesting about this, because we've been playing Halloween games. If you guys missed it yesterday, Justin and I were playing Dead by Daylight yesterday, and
Attempted.
attempted. I mean, we didn't do too bad. It was funny.
Yeah,
Um,
it was good.
it was a good time. But Halloween themes are kind of, or theme games are kind of what I do this time of year. So this one was announced a year ago. But what's interesting is that it's not a game playable by like us, I don't think. Ascension is basically a choose your own adventure stream type game. But what's even crazier about it is it's the streamers who are watching, or the chat that is watching the stream, that gets to select the adventure, which I thought was crazy. I've never heard of that
That's
concept.
insane.
Yeah, so rather than us play a game and then the streamers watch along, we the audience gets, I don't know if it's gonna be like chat commands or how it works, but basically it's going to allow the audience to have a direct influence on the series. It's not just one stream; it's going to be multiple series by the developer Genuid is what it's called. So I thought that was super interesting because we're doing Halloween type video games this month, but that's also something super crazy that it's via a stream. I tried finding the actual video game online. I don't think it's available to us. I think it's only a developer played game where the streamer audience or the audience, the chat, gets to control the fate or the adventure that's unfolding in front of them, which is wild. I think it's completely wild that
That,
that's
yeah,
the thing.
it also puts a lot of trust into your stream and your community. You know.
Yeah, well, like with me, it'd be like one person. It would be Tommy going, "Go left," like
Yeah,
they probably have to have a pretty good fan base to be able to do this
I'd
because
imagine.
yeah, that was pretty amazing when I saw that. So for those of you, and I'm probably actually going to tune in. I don't know if I'll stream it, like stream the stream, but it's apparently you can watch it on ascension.com. Is going to be the main website, but then the website goes on and says, or IGN says, it's basically can be accessed anywhere you can access Netflix. So maybe it's going to be a Netflix stream too. I honestly have no idea
That,
if it's going to be like a movie. It's going to be wild. I've never heard anything like
yeah,
that. So I thought that was going to be pretty cool.
be worth
Um,
checking out anyway.
yeah, I would say so. It's going to be October 31st. It's called Silent Hill Ascension. So if you all want to check that out, that's where it's going to be at. The next thing I want to talk about, and this is a little more. I thought this was interesting because coming from a pilot background, we're unionized. I want to say there's SkyWest is the only one that doesn't technically have a union. They have like a pilot group, a student council, if you will. So I come from a background. I took classes on um, a CBA and like just employee labor standards going through college. I was the chief stew for a short while at my flight school. Been involved with union work ever since I was at the regionals. So this is from Polygon, a investigative reporter Nicole Carpenter. There's this game called Dragon Age. It's basically a fantasy role playing game, and they're it's kind of weird how they do this. So they're not developers. The company that is unionized is not developers. They basically provide quality assurance and testers. So basically, it's like outsourcing people who play video games. So it's like if I want to say, hey, let's enter into contract with the developer and you guys will go test their games. Well, back in let's see, June of 2022, this group of testers and stuff from it's called Keyword Studio. They unionized. They're the first one in Canada of a gaming group to create a union, which I think is awesome. I'm 100% pro union. I know there's mixed bag there, but they created a union. But the problem is this last month in September, the company who's developing the Dragon Age a fantasy role playing game, they didn't renew the contract with the Q&A, and because the union is so new, they didn't have a CBA or collective bargaining agreement with the company. So right now, I think the current news is that they laid off 13 workers last month, which is kind of weird because it's like, wait, they're union, so but the thing is, there's no contract up yet because it hasn't been negotiated yet.
Yeah.
So they're trying to fight with like the company to get these people proper severance packages, and the union's arguing that Keywords Studio isn't providing enough for the separation, which is kind of interesting. But I think that's just kind of interesting that even in the world that you wouldn't think is unionized, we're starting to see more unions pop out like that. How is it in the commercial truck or the professional driving sector? Is there a lot of unionization, or how does that work?
No, actually, and there was a time when it was. Right now, the largest union for truckers is the international. What is it? Eh, Teamsters Brotherhood, or they're
Oh,
Teamsters anyway. They're the
Teams.
largest union for truck drivers right now. But as far as companies that actually are unionized, there aren't a lot. Um, one of our sister companies, so we are held by the company that I work for. We haul groceries. That's
Mhm.
that's what we do. From the warehouse to the stores. Um, one of our sister companies is actually union.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like an individual. It's like a
Yeah,
local chapter type deal.
yeah,
That's okay. And it's are they part of like Teamsters? Or are they part of
yeah,
a
yeah.
big one?
I do believe they're Teamsters.
Okay. Yeah, Teamsters is a big one, just like ALPA is
Yeah,
one of the biggest airline unions in the world. And I forgot to mention the name of this union is the United Food and Commercial Workers Union. So it sounds like they unionize under maybe a bigger union
yeah,
up in Canada, but it was one of the first, which I think is really cool. I know Starbucks is kind of moving towards that too.
yep.
Um, Amazon. Well, no, I don't think Amazon is.
Mm,
Uh,
I that I don't know. Like, there's
I'm not sure.
my feelings on unions are this: if your company is doing everything in their power to bust the unionization of workers, there's a reason for it.
Correct. Yeah, I agree.
You know,
Yeah.
that companies wouldn't be scared of or companies are scared of unions if they're trying to stop you from forming one.
Correct. Yeah, and it's usually there's a reason why because and bottom line, a lot of people argue that unions are pains and stuff like that, but bottom line is they help protect the quality of life and of the labor party. Basically,
Right,
what it is, and it does. It just basically puts a line in the sand to a mansion that says, "Hey, you can't cross this."
right.
So,
Human resources departments are there to protect the company.
yep.
Unions are there to protect the worker.
Yeah, exactly. That's very well put. And the point, and like you were saying, if there's a company that's just like, oh, we anti-union or trying to break up unions, there's probably a reason that they don't want it because they know that the unions are going to tell them, hey, you got to stop treating your employees like this. So I just thought that was an interesting article in the gaming industry, just because it's something that you don't really think, especially something for quality assurance and testing, something that you wouldn't really think is going to be unionized. So, like I said, not I'm not as good as Tommy D when it comes to talking about gaming, but that was my poor attempt at
Hey,
doing a gaming segment.
10 out of 10 for me.
Oh, all right. Now we're gonna move on to something that I actually know something about.
You
Um,
sure?
well, I don't know. It's aviation. So there's always something new in aviation. So this one's really big because in aviation nowadays there is a lot of stuff that's going on. So I'm pretty sure you've heard of Boom Overture, right, Justin? The it's
Vaguely.
Yeah. So the Boom Overture is by 2029 is supposed to be supersonic passenger travel, right?
Okay.
So there's a lot of things in the news about the future of aviation. So there's like the ES-16, the all-electric aircraft that's supposed to be doing like commute. I think Mesa is slotted to fly them once they come out. There is Boom Overture, which I believe American has jumped United in orders because they actually put down a deposit for the first orders after United did or something like that. They change the order all the time. But the reason I chose this article to talk about is because it's something of actual tangibility, some of actual reality. In Germany, there's a company called H2 Fly, and H2 Fly is a company that's developing alternative aviation sources of fuel as well as hydrogen powered flight. So hydrogen, not water, that's H2O, but hydrogen, the gas, and sometimes the liquid form, in order to power aircraft, which is more sustainable because it's just a form of water. Basically, it makes up water. It's a
Yep.
lot cleaner to burn than our current aviation fuels. But what's important about this is back in September of 2023, they had their first piloted flight with a liquid hydrogen powered electric aircraft. That's what blew my mind. I didn't think, well, I guess it couldn't be diesel powered, but like the hydrogen helps with the batteries, or there's I'm that part I don't quite understand, but there's a process between the batteries and the hydrogen that allow it to be powered, which is unbelievable. So and it's not like a concept thing. It's not like Boom Overture. I think Boom just got their like little test plane certified and to do flight, but it is an actual aircraft that has been powered by hydrogen in order um to fly around, right? To moving towards commercial.
Yep.
Which is unbelievable. According to their thing, the article by Simple Flying, they have 4 test flights so far, and they said the longest one was lasting over 3 hours. I did more research. I was trying to figure out because obviously the biggest thing is going to be range, right?
Right.
Everybody talks about electric this, electric that, but realistically, is it a workable range to where an airline or a commercial operator can make money off this technology? And they said longer than 3 hours, which is not terrible, but is that like 3 hours and 1 minute? Is that 3 hours until the engines are completely like sputtering? Is that including a reserve? All that sort of stuff. But they found that liquid hydrogen versus gaseous hydrogen doubles the range to 932 miles. That's not anything really to scoff at. And perfect example, I did this last week. I did Chicago to Madison, Wisconsin. That was like 143 nautical miles. So
Okay.
9 times that distance. That's a 30-minute flight. So 9 times that distance, which is roughly that's over 3 hours.
Yeah.
So it is possible, but it's really impressive that they're doing that. They also found that liquid, which this is kind of confusing me. So it said that liquid hydrogen versus gaseous hydrogen reduces weight. That's why they can go so much farther with the range. And then I was looking, I was like, wait, isn't gas lighter than liquid? I thought, obviously, high school science here. But it turns out what they're talking about is volume. So they need more gaseous liquid hydrogen or more gaseous hydrogen. So the tanks are bigger. So by converting it to liquid hydrogen, they're actually using smaller tanks to store it. So it makes it actually lighter, the aircraft lighter, which allows the increase in range, which is
Yep.
pretty. That's Germans using their brain. I would have never thought of that. Um, and they claim that the next gen high altitude fuel cell flights up to 27,000 feet for full power range. They're saying that that's going to be in the near future. That they have it up to 27,000 feet, and it says full power range. But once again, I don't know what that range is. I don't know if the company is like trying to keep it close to their chest or what it is. I couldn't really find any more information about that. But so the big news is that there's been a aircraft that has been successfully piloted 4 times with nothing but hydrogen and electricity. So that is something I
That's
think is going to be interesting to look forward to in the future.
yeah.
Obviously, it's going to take a little bit of time because there's going to be regulatory things as well. Like how do you regulate battery life, maintenance programs and such like that too. So that's something that we'll kind of skip through in the future.
I mean, that's like anything new in any industry is, there's a period of testing and
Yep.
a period of real world applications. I know along the lines of alternative fuel, one of the companies, I want to say it was Tesla, their commercial truck that they're trying to bring to market has a range of, I want to say it was like 500 miles until
Okay.
you're completely drained.
Okay.
However, when you pull over and recharge in 30 minutes, you can regain about 80% of its charge.
Wow. That's
So, as
yeah.
drivers, we're required to take a half-hour break. Before 8 hours of drive time, we have to take a half-hour break. So, if you plug in that half hour and say, you're trying to push yourself a little bit further on that range, you plug in for that half hour, there you go. There's your extra mileage for the range. And then
Wow.
when you shut down for the day, your normal 10 hours,
Hmm.
you'll be plugged in, recharging, and you'll have a full set of batteries for the next day.
Wow. Okay. So there's even though it seems like I don't want to say impossible, but there's opportunity, right? Is what you're
Yep.
saying is to manage the mileage because you guys
Yep.
are already required to take rest breaks. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. And I could see like something like that ending up doing this where it's like, well, it has a range of 935 miles, but realistically, we're going to be flying it to Madison, Wisconsin. So it's not going to be as big of a certification
Right.
process as we think it's going to be. So interesting.
Right. It might be a great market space for like the regionals
Yeah.
where you're not
Yeah.
doing, you know, a 6 hour cross country flight. You're doing what, maximum maybe 2 hour hops.
Yeah. With that hour restriction. Yeah. That may actually kind of launch it quicker in terms of the certification process. If they're like, your range is 935, but just you can't do anything more than 600 miles at a time.
Yeah.
So all right, well, that concludes our news segment. If you and Justin here is going to talk us through what our next segment's going to be.
So this little segment is called Jargon in a Jiffy, where we introduce a definition of a topic and we'll try and guess the actual word.
And it's going to be interesting. And they're industry specific topics because we know that our industries can be kind of intimidating sometimes, our careers, because of the stuff that we talk about, right? We're so used to the jargon and stuff like that, but we don't want it to intimidate you. We want you to understand what we're saying. And I'm still getting a lot of comments on the different channels that we're live on. Remember, y'all, we're not ignoring you. There is a live Q&A session at the end, and that's what we're saving it for. So just be patient, and we will get to you guys here shortly. So, Justin, do you want to go first? I'll try to guess
Okay.
what your words are.
So this word
Mm-hmm.
means to go from one place to another with no freight responsibility.
Freight responsibility. So,
Almost like you're repositioning.
okay. Is it? Wait, repositioning. So, like repositioning, as in you're not operating it, or do you like
no,
have a trailer?
So for instance, I've just made a delivery
Mm-hmm.
in Boston.
Okay.
My next pickup is in Worcester.
Okay.
I would have to do this to get to Worcester.
Okay. So, do you have a physical trailer?
I have a trailer,
But you said no freight responsibility.
but no freight responsibility.
Okay. Is that? I'm gonna guess because it sounds a lot.
It's an empty trailer.
I'm gonna because you said repositioning, and that sounds exactly. I'm gonna go with what I know in the aviation industry. Is it deadheading?
It is. It is a deadhead. And as companies, you have to picture trucks, trailers, and drivers as assets.
Okay.
And as your assets get into one area, you have to, maximize their productivity. So you don't want to have them deadhead. I wouldn't deadhead a driver from Boston all the way up to Portland, Maine. I would try and find freight a hell of a lot closer. So,
gotcha.
And along those same
you're not
lines,
making money. Got it.
along those same lines, there is a term
Okay.
where the truck does not have a trailer attached.
So it's just the tractor rolling around.
Just a tractor.
And I feel like you taught me this while we were playing ATS.
Yes, while we were playing American Truck Sim, I did. This was one of my dissertation sessions.
And this is looking really bad on me too, because I don't think I remember it. I remember us talking about it because in that specific session that we were doing, you and I were going around trying to find Tommy without trailers, right?
Yes.
I'm drawing a blank. Honestly, I can't remember. So it's not deadheading. So if it's not deadheading and you're not having a trailer,
it is a form of deadheading. It's called bobtailing.
Oh, okay.
So if you can think of a bobcat,
yeah,
they're missing their tail. You're missing a trailer. It's a bobtail.
That makes I remember that now. So 2 things we learned today: bobtailing. So if you see a tractor trailer, a tractor or a truck, a commercial truck, semi truck, whatever you want to call them, rolling that around without a trailer, they are bobtailing, right?
Yep.
And if they're rolling around without cargo but a trailer, they're deadheading because they're not actually hauling anything. Okay, that's interesting because deadhead's kind of the same.
Yeah, it kind of crosses over. Which
exactly.
I thought was,
and it actually makes sense. It's not like a crossover that's just like, wait, what? How? What? But it's pretty much the same thing. We're not working the flight. We're just being repositioned somewhere.
Yep.
All right. So mine, I'm gonna do it a little bit different. It's the phrase that I'm using. So this is in aviation, is the rabbits, and I'll use it in a sentence and see if you can guess what it means. The rabbits. So a pilot would say, "I was on the approach. It was dark, and I picked up the rabbits at about 300 feet." Do you know what I'm talking about?
The only thing that I could think of immediately were the what are they? Your approach lights, the red lights there on the side of the runway.
Almost. I mean, you're right. It is approach lighting system, but the rabbit specifically, and this is jargon, guys. You're not going to find this in any sort of manual. But the rabbits is the sequence flashers. So either in LSF, which stands for approach lighting system sequence flashers, or Mouser, which is runway medium intensity approach lighting system with runway alignment indicator lights. Basically, you guys can see it at night, especially in low weather. It's the white light that flashes and like runs down the approach lighting system, and it looks like the white tail of a rabbit when it
Gotcha.
runs away. And the way it moves is like a rabbit, right? So when we say I got the rabbit, and I've said it before in the cockpit before, hey, I got the rabbits. That's what we're referring to is those white lights. So
Gotcha.
learn something new.
Yeah.
All right,
I was
so
close though.
you were close. Yeah, it is the approach lighting system. It's 100% what it is, and not all approach lighting systems have the sequence flashers associated with them. For example, a shortened approach lighting system or an SMALF, or yeah, sorry, there's so many acronyms. A shortened one, medium intensity lighting system, doesn't necessarily have it. So, and it's funny because if they're incorporated into the approach lights, it's considered sequence flashers. If it's before the approach lighting system, like on a Mouser, it's considered runway alignment indication lights, rails. Don't ask me why. It's just how they're defined, and whoever was making up the acronyms, if that's how it is. So,
Hey, we made up 3 different definitions for the same thing.
wel-
Okay.
welcome to aviation. That's just that's just how it is. And that was jargon in a jiffy. Now up next, um, this is actually going to be pretty funny as time comes on. It's going to be comment corner, and this is just us talking about some of the interesting social media interactions that we have had while we've been growing our content creation. So on TikTok, YouTube, etc. Um, Now, my famous one, I think my defining one on how I was going to handle trolls, especially during TikTok lives and stuff like that, was the infamous scooter. So back on a live, this had to have been like my third or fourth live doing Microsoft Flight Simulator via Live Studio on VatSim. And I was sitting on the runway, and I was actually just taxiing up to this runway, and this guy in TikTok Live jumped in, and his name is Scooter. That's it. At Scooter was his username. And I can't remember initially what he said. The video is on my TikTok account, so you can go see it because I highlighted it. But he starts talking about how I'm not experienced enough because I'm not like 40 years old. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? Like I've been an airline pilot for like nearly 7 years, right? And I have 5,000 flight hours. Like, what are you talking about? And he goes, oh, well, you can't be, an experienced pilot. I don't want you flying my plane unless you're over 40 and have 10,000 hours of flight hours. And I was like, I don't think you understand how much flight time that is, like how that works realistically. So then I get onto the runway in the sim, and I'm trying to listen to the radio call outs because there's somebody landing. I'm in Houston, and there's a guy landing on the cross runway, and there's also these two Yahoos landing opposite direction of the runway I'm trying to take off on. So the guy landing cross, I asked him, I said, okay, what DME, which stands for distance measuring equipment. Crap, I can't use that next week now for jargon in a jiffy, but DME, he is, so I'm trying to gauge how far he is away from the cross runway so to depart or not. And the guy's like, well, I don't know. He doesn't know what DME is, which happens a lot on flight sim, because we're not all professional pilots on flight sim. So I was like, okay, I honestly don't know where he is. So I'm just going to sit on the runway, line up and just wait for him to cross, because that is the safest thing I can do.
Right.
Then Scooter comes in on the chat and says, see, you need more experience because you don't know where that aircraft is. And that's where the TikTok video I have starts, because he says, oh, you're not experienced enough because you don't know where that airplane is. And it was a moment of looking at him and going, listen, like taking that moment of trying to remain professional, because that's, I don't want to go off on a listen here, buddy boy. And knowing that he is probably like 50 years old, right? 50, 60 years old, thinking that I'm a kid flying an airplane. So, and I think I ended up just telling him, I just, in a very quick stance, exactly what I just said. It's like, hey, I asked him where his DME was. He doesn't know what it is. I don't know where he is. There's no actual radar in the airplane. That's not how it works in real life. So the safest thing I can do is stay on this runway until I see him cross. Then I can go. And I think I added at the end of it, but your input is noted. It's what I said at the end. And that's kind of been a defining thing. I actually have a merch shirt that says Scooter Airlines, and then on the back it has the hiring requirements of 10,000 hours and 40 hours or 40 years old.
Yeah.
So it's just been like a running theme. Like I have my skeleton back here, who is still waiting to flow to Scooter Airlines because apparently he doesn't meet the age requirement. So So that's just been one of my more iconic and infamous social media interactions. There's been a lot more, especially like you guys know in my live streams, the flat earthers that come in or the chemtrail conspiracy theorists. I just I can't handle them because I
I
don't know how to explain it to them.
I love to how you've just kind of you've started playing into it, and like every once in a while, like somebody will mention it, and you'll be like, "Oh yeah, Tommy, don't forget, turn on the chemtrails." Like,
Yep, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's that switch right there, and then and it's funny because then as soon as you say it, it's like there's an algorithm on TikTok where they all just come in troves into the chat. They're like, "Oh my god, see, he confirmed it. He's a professional pilot. He confirmed it." It's like, no, 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 it's a joke. It is a freaking joke. Oh,
shit.
but now Justin is growing his content channel right now on
Uh,
TikTok and I'm sorry, on Twitch, right? That's the
yes, yeah,
so
TikTok and Twitch.
so have
Um,
you had any social media interactions that you want to talk about, or is it just one of those things you haven't been you
I
haven't had one yet?
I really haven't had one that like stands out to me.
Okay.
I love like going into other content creators' streams, and I do it to you all the time. I'll heckle you and joke around with you and Tommy, and um well, there was this one time you came into my chat, and I was live, and I was in the middle of an American Truck Sim stream,
Mhm.
and you had asked, "Hey, are you really a real trucker?" And I think my response was, I'm working on it. There's a lot of buttons and stuff."
Or I think my favorite one is when you were driving and I was sitting, I think it was just Tommy and I in the chat, and you're like, "Cause I'm a professional." Like I think
I am a professional. Yep.
you just avoided something and you're like, "Yeah, I'm a professional." And then I don't know if you remember, you immediately sideswiped a Jersey barrier.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, "'Cause I'm a
Because I am
professional."
a professional, and
And
then
just like
sideswipe the Jersey barrier.
and it's funny because you didn't immediately say anything. You just kind of like pulled back into the lane. And I don't know if you were expecting us to like hopefully didn't see that happen. And I was like, professional slams into Jersey barrier. So basically what we're saying is just we're Justin's biggest trolls, basically
Yeah,
when he goes
I
live.
think we're all each other's biggest trolls at this point.
Yeah, and it is good hearted fun. It's like RAI, who's I see RAIs in our TikTok live. RAI is an air traffic controller in real life, and as soon as he enters the stream, he just roasts us, and that's what RAI does. And I know to a lot of people that aren't familiar with him, they're like, "Why isn't this guy getting blocked? He's trolling." It's just that's what RAI does. So, and then so Justin, what made you, or how do I put this? What inspires you to do content creating? Is
Um,
it what's your goal with your platform?
so at this point, I'll start with the former, um, or the latter, and I'll go to the former. Um, I just want to share as much information as I can. Um, I've always believed, and this was taught to me, when I was going to college, is nobody can take away education.
That's true.
Nobody can take away that knowledge. So even the more I can learn, the more I can share. And I've 13 years of driving. I grew up in the industry. My dad was a diesel mechanic and a truck driver himself. So this is all information that I've either gained professionally or anecdotally, um, just from my background. And
Mhm,
if I can share that information with people and make the industry better,
mhm.
and even if nobody that I teach comes into the industry, at least they have that knowledge, and they can at least understand where I'm coming from with some of my frustrations or some
Mhm.
of my um, incidents.
Yeah, and I want to point out too, because when I first met Justin, we all met through one of my lives. Like I met Tommy D. He came to my live, then he reached out about a YouTube video he was doing about explaining approach charts. That's how I got to know Tommy D. Justin came into one of my lives. I can't. Wasn't it an ATS live? I, or was
I
it one
think
of my?
I think I had popped into like a couple of your just standard lives,
Okay,
just trying to gain more information on your industry.
right. And it's the
and
crazy
and,
thing
and then
is,
it's just kind of you know we can draw some similarities between
Yep.
your industry and my industry, and you know, ATS came in, and it's funny, you're actually the person that convinced me to, jump into ATS because I had always said, I'm like, screw, I'm not playing a game that I do in real life. Like, it's not going to be realistic. It's not going to be fun. It's going to be this, and it's been anything but. Like, I have a lot of fun when I do it. When I stream it, I try and get it as close
Hmm.
to my life as possible,
Hmm.
with the hours of service regulations
Yep.
and, speed and all that. But at the same time, I try and have a little bit of fun with it.
And I want to point out, like, I was a transportation enthusiast before this, but when I met Justin and we jumped in to ATS, or American Truck Simulator, for the first time together, and I remember we were waiting for Tommy to bobtail. Hey,
There you
we were
go.
waiting for him to bobtail. I think we were in like Sacramento or something like that, to convoy together. Justin was explaining the weigh scales, right? Because I had no idea. I'd seen them all the time traveling around the country, and I was like, "What is this?" And if you could see my face during that live stream, I was just captivated. I didn't. It blew my mind how technically, what's the word, intelligent, or just the know-how of Justin. That blew my mind. And that Justin doesn't realize this, but he truly started my cu- curiosity, I guess, or enthusiasm towards the trucking industry. Because before it was like, oh, it's a semi trucker, or it's a commercial truck driver. That's all I knew. I knew they had some sort of rest requirements, and that they would walk into the pilot jet shop to take a shower. That was it coming up to this. But after this, I am engrossed in learning about commercial driving. Like, and a perfect example is, like, I'll text Justin, or I'll text the group chat and be like, "Yo, there's this Pete 579 sitting in the Walmart parking lot, but the
Yeah.
thing doesn't have hood mirrors. Like, what a clown, like just stuff like that."
See, personally, I like having hood mirrors, and there are a lot of drivers that you know don't like them, don't use them because of the aesthetics of it. Like they like that
Yeah,
nice, clean,
clean.
clean lines, But I find them like really useful.
Yeah, and stuff like little stuff like that, like noticing that there's a lot of freaking Freightliner Cascadias running around, and then texting Justin and be like, why is there so many? And then finding out that I think it was FedEx, right, that had a deal with Cascadia, or with a Freightliner.
So most of your big companies,
Yeah.
they shop around
Okay.
and they look at, okay, well these trucks might be a little bit more expensive, but company B might give us a better deal
Mm,
on
gotcha.
these trucks versus company A, so we're going to go with company B's. And I guess right now, or it has been, that Freightliner just gives the better fleet pricing.
And they must, because they're literally everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I've been looking. I get super excited because my first truck on ATS was the Pete. Was it 389
Yeah.
or
The long,
379?
379, 389. It depends what year it was, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's all about and then so I look for those because I'm like, oh, I remember that, and I've looked for Mac Anthems, and I've seen one. I've seen
Yeah.
one Mac Anthem.
They
Um,
they are few and far in between.
they're nice trucks, but yeah, they're few and far between. And that's also something that we're gonna be talking about probably in future episodes. I don't know. Did you want to talk about um your or your, what am I trying to say? Your endeavor, I should say, with your,
Um
or we can save that for a later
yeah,
episode if you want to.
let's table that one,
Okay.
and
I'm
little
super
cliffhanger.
excited.
Little
Yeah, there we go,
cliffhanger.
cliffhanger. We'll let him talk about that. I'm super excited because of not being a part of it, but he's keeping me in the loop about what's going on. So that I'm super excited about that. Which is perfect because that kind of leads us into our weekly discussion topic. This is going to be the meat and bones of our each week's episode. It's not having anything to do with our industry or anything. It's just a random topic that we're going to discuss. And in our Discord, if you're part of our Discord, there is a chat channel there called Discussion Topic Request. If you guys have any ideas on certain things, appropriate things, obviously, that you want us to discuss in the next week's episode, you can throw it in there, and it may make the episode. But this is important because we talked about this, and this is a huge thing amongst gamers. So it's very pertinent. Modern Warfare 2, Season 5, now 6. there is AI voice chat moderation, right? Very controversial to a lot of players, mainly the mainly the ones that are going to get in trouble because of it. But the question is, and the point of discussion right now is this something that's going to improve gameplay for those of us playing online and stuff like this? Or is it the downfall of the Modern Warfare 2 saga? So I don't know if you want to start, Justin, or
Yeah, I
what
can
do you
start.
think?
Um, so where do I sit on the AI moderation?
Hmm.
Um, you know, personally, when I'm logging on to Modern Warfare or American Truck Sim or any other game, I'm doing it as a form of entertainment and relaxation.
Hmm.
And I don't know how relaxing it is to have, some. Yeah, I mean, age doesn't have to be a defining quality,
Right.
but
Hmm.
you hear it like, the little kids, F this, F you,
Yeah.
F your mom, and there's just like, there's ways to chirp
Hmm.
and there's ways to, um, gloat, but, you know, if you're playing, for instance, I play a lot of Search and Destroy, my favorite game mode by
Nice.
far.
Nice.
Um, and it gets really competitive. And now, again, there are ways to chirp, but there are ways to win gracefully.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
a good way of
think,
putting it.
these guys, oh, I just shit on you. I didn't sign on to be, with a CDL League wannabe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I came in to, blow off a little bit of steam, and now it's come to the point where, like, I just mute everyone in lobby anyway. So anyone that might have some pertinent information, even my teammates, I'm not going to hear it because I just mute them. And I think it's gone too far, and I think that maybe a little bit of moderation
Okay.
is needed. But
So you think that the AI, so the voice chat moderation will limit the toxic people in the lobby chat and allow better communication between people who actually want to communicate
yeah,
effectively.
yeah,
So in that sense, it would improve gameplay, right? Because then you have better. Because we've talked about
you
it a
would
million
think.
times. Is when you talk to your teammates, the call outs. Well, unless it's me as a teammate who can't make call outs, the oh he's over there call out. Um, it's easier
On me,
to
on me.
on me, where's you? I don't know where I'm at. On blue building, you know. So that I guess I could, yeah, I do
Yeah.
agree with you. That would improve gameplay 100% because you're not having to, you can communicate a little bit better.
Yep.
um I'm kind of in the same boat. I actually looked up, it's the AI moderation is by Toxmod. They're a pretty big company based in Boston. And I looked up,
Heyo.
they have the starting price package I saw was 2 grand. So if you have like a small company that needs moderation, it's 2 grand. And then it goes all the way up to 20 grand. Then it goes into a custom pricing, which I'm pretty sure Activision is probably in that custom pricing area, I would think. Definitely more than 20,000 for a series
I
like
mean,
Modern
20
Warfare.
20K for Activision. That's a bargain.
Yeah, exactly. So I was looking at that because I was curious, right? Because a lot of people argue, oh, it's against my First Amendment right or privacy, right? Because it's like now the AI is listening to us. No, it's not. It actually isn't, because when you sign in to play, and you choose to use the voice lobby, you are agreeing to allow that AI moderation to moderate you. There is a way, you don't. It's not like you have to be doing that. So, for example, not because we say anything we're not supposed to, but we use Discord a lot while we're gaming because of the better audio quality. But that is a way, if you're nervous or don't want AI voice chat moderation, or if you like to say stuff that will definitely get you banned on Modern Warfare, then you can use a secondary service. You just have to turn off that function in game. Um, and they do. It's actually kind of interesting how they end up doing it, because from what I understand, it starts off kind of like filtering through keywords, right? And it's not an instant ban. It's not like it's gonna go, oh, yep, you're banned. The AI itself does not ban you or do the actual moderation. It records. It'll sense based off keywords and stuff like that. It'll sense the like a part of a party chat that needs to be recorded. So it's not like the entire thing is recorded. There's something that triggers it. Then what it'll do is it'll what I saw is, and I don't know how they do it because I'm not smart in that way, but AI will determine based off tone and wording and stuff whether or not it needs to be escalated to an actual human being moderator at Activision. Then it goes to that Activision person. They listen to it, and then um, they get banned or not. There's still a human aspect to it. It's just it's allowing for the moderators to have more, because there's thousands of us playing all around the world. So one person is not going to be able to handle all that. So the AI is just assisting with that. So I just want to make everybody aware it's not like they're constantly recording everything you do. It's just there's certain things. And I think we found, because Sunny was talking about what they call cigarettes in Europe. We're not going to mention that here because that's here in the US. It's not an appropriate word. It's a derogatory term. But he didn't get banned, but US counterparts got a warning for it. And that kind of goes to show it's also region specific as well, I think.
Yeah.
But going back to what you said, I do agree with you. I've been in lobbies where it's just the toxicity, even if there are campers, but the toxicity kind of ruins the gameplay. Really, when you're sitting there trying to play a game, trying to relax, and there's people being rude and obnoxious and inappropriate, and there's no reason, right? Even as a streamer too, because I don't want that to pop up on my stream if someone's saying something inappropriate, because it's not me, it's somebody else, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to affect somebody in my audience negatively, so on and so forth. So I completely agree with you. I think the AI voice chat moderation, while some people are kind of like, oh, it's not fair, it's against, privacy and stuff like that. If you opt into it, I think it's going to improve gameplay, because then you'll be allowed to use the voice chat and lobby chat and party chat the way it was intended to use, is to communicate to one another.
Yeah.
Right, not necessarily talk trash, and also kill, like the kill cam stuff is still, and Activision on their website even came out and says trash talking is still allowed. Like, that's in there. What they're really searching for is just harmful language. They don't define what harmful language is, and I think that's because it varies depending on where you are, stuff like that. But trash talking will still be allowed. But overall, they're trying to create a safer saga, or a safer gameplay environment, which I appreciate. I think that's something that we need a little more in a lot of different things, of just being able to check that, be like, hey, because if you want to talk like that, and that's fine, just go use your Discord server. But it's the people that go into the multiplayer lobbies that intentionally turn on their mics to be able to intentionally say that to other people with the intention of being toxic and harmful. I think there's no place for that in gaming, personally.
Yep. No, I agree. And going back to what you said about it's my First Amendment. When you know that part that when you start playing a game, you scroll all the way to the bottom and you just click I agree.
Yep.
Code of conduct or terms of service, it's all in there. What's expected of you as a user. So if you're hearing about this and you're like, oh, I didn't sign up for that, well, you kind of clicked agree.
You kind of
did. I mean, either don't use it or fall in line with their terms of service.
Yeah, and I think that's also another thing too, is that it's also helping them enforce their terms of service, because what's happening now is a lot of people are like, oh, they've never done this before. Well, they have. It's just they haven't had the tools to be able to consistently enforce their conduct. Now with this AI, with the power of computer and technology, they're going to be able to enforce it more, because I guarantee you their code of conduct hasn't necessarily changed, but now the people who are actually consistently violating it will have consequences to their actions.
Yeah, so code of conduct hasn't changed, but enforcement has.
There you go. And like I said, I think obviously I'm a pilot, so I'm a big rule follower. So I think it's something that needs to be enforced. So, and a lot of people are arguing that it's gonna be people are gonna stop playing the Modern Warfare 2 or Modern Warfare 3 saga. I don't think it's gonna stop. Yeah. I think people are just gonna move to a different platform. Let's see. And with that being said, Modern Warfare 3 is set to release on November 8th, 2000. Sorry, that was the old one. That was 2011. I'm sorry. So Modern Warfare 3 should be. Let me look it up here. It should be in November. It should be the official release. And right now, the AI voice chat is just a beta stage. They're testing it with full implementation planned for the Modern Warfare 3 series that's coming out in November. That was a good discussion topic, Justin. I think that was a
I
good
like
one
that
to
one.
open it. Yeah, because we both play Modern Warfare. We've both experienced the toxicity that is multiplayer.
Yeah,
Especially I've tried ranked and I am terrible at it. But you want to talk about toxicity? That's where it's at.
I won't. I have
Yeah.
no.
So, um,
I'm sensitive.
I'm sensitive. Yeah, it's kind of rough, but that concludes our weekly topic of discussion. Obviously, next week, like I said, it's gonna be random. If you guys have um, an idea that you want, go into our Discord. It's free to join. It's under Three Green Simulations. There's a chat under Torque and Thrust Talk Show category where you can just request a discussion topic and we can discuss it on the next uh, live live session here. Now, this is the part that we loved about that you guys have been waiting for. It's going to be our live Q&A. We're going to pull up the chat here.
All right.
Um, it doesn't. No new comments. All right. Well, that awkward. Wow, wow. There's. Wow, wow, wow. I'm gonna pull up TikTok here real quick. We're gonna run through this. Um, this is from TikTok. This is from Hermie. He says, "I am thinking about going over the road. I think that's what OTR means, right?
Yep, over the road.
OTR to cover flight school expenses. Ooh." And he says, "And I find this
That's
topic interesting." So it's not really a question, but what's the viability? What's the realistic? Is that real? Is that realistic to expect?
I mean, it it is. There's a way you can do it. If you, because I know flight school is expensive. I was looking into it, and just because of my living situation, family, and my current career, it was just it was kind of a big paywall to
Hmm.
hit. Um, but that being said, if you can minimize your outgoing costs. So the trick with living on the road, the most expensive part of living on the road and driving on the road is food.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
Because, truck stop food is expensive. Um, if you drive for a company that has an APU, that is an auxiliary power unit,
Hmm.
and they have a power inverter in the truck, and they also have a refrigerator,
Hmm.
those three things you can sustain yourself very easily. I can tell you a crock pot
Hmm.
is less than 1500 watts,
Hmm.
and you can make some pretty great meals just out of a crock pot. They're going to save you a ton of money.
Gotcha. So are you saying basically like while you're doing this to save money, right, for flight training, is stay out on the road as much as you can. So basically live out of
Yep.
live
Yeah,
out.
with over the road jobs, you get paid when the wheels are turning. So as long as you're under a load, you're getting paid. When you go home, those days off are unpaid.
I gotcha. Okay.
So, my wife and I had discussed it, a few years ago. I was like, if we had really thought about this when I started my career, you would have come on the road with me, and,
Hmm.
we would have claimed an address somewhere as, quote, home,
Yeah. Physical.
and,
Yeah.
and just run the road for a year or a year and a half, and, without any rent or anything like that, and all that money would be recouped. So if
Hmm.
you can get yourself into that situation where you have a family member that, hey, you know, once a month I'm going to swing by and throw my laundry in
Hmm.
and come back out and minimize your overhead, and,
Hmm.
and the only thing you have to worry about is your food, I think it can be done very easily.
Okay. Well, and that's a good point because I know there's a lot of people that are, in that industry that want to do what we do or what I do. You know what I mean? So that's a
Yeah.
good kind of idea how to save money for something like flight training because flight training is extremely expensive. Um, there's another question for you from our moderator Snowy. Says question for Justin. In your opinion, should these standards? He's talking about the pilot program that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Should those be implemented with bus drivers as well? So are you basically are you all commercial drivers should have to have minimum
Yep.
requirements?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, if you're gonna do it for Class A driver, you should do it for everyone.
And I think that's fair. Yeah, because the commercial, it's just like a lot of people think airline pilots are, well, we are commercial pilots, but when you say commercial pilots, it means all airline pilots, which it kind of does. But there's other facets of commercial flying, like in the private sector, charter, and so on and so forth. But we all have the same standards to get a commercial license, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So yeah, I 100% agree with that. Let's see. That's it. That's all I got for questions in here. Those were actually really good questions, all directed.
It really was, yeah.
Directed towards Justin, which means I probably explained my part really well. No, I'm just kidding. That just means nobody had any idea what I was.
Nobody cares about your flying.
Nobody cares. There's enough of that.
Let's talk to the steering wheel holder. No.
There we go. Something that we understand more, which is great. I'm glad those were some pretty good questions. And like I said, in the future, if you guys are hanging out here and you guys have a question, just drop it in the wherever you're watching, drop it in the chat, and we'll get to it. It's just we're trying to get towards the segment for that. So with that being said, we are going to wrap it up. That was a very good episode, hour and 16 minutes, right off the bat. A lot of good discussion topics. Just as a reminder, our next show will be next week on Thursday, which I believe is going to be the 12th at the same time, 8 a.m. Central, and at, I almost said 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Eastern. And that episode is going to be, is it out of this world, or are we out of our mind? With that, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. And on behalf of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, that's you, Justin.
I'm Justin.
We'll practice that. And I'm Bill, and we will see you all next time.
And Tommy's somewhere.
And Tommy will join us. See you guys later.
Thanks. Have a good one.